What's up, everybody? Ryan Thomas, live on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast, bringing you another edition of the show of all shows. And I think that right now, as we sit here, it's very early in the fantasy quote-unquote season. It's July, but I know a lot of people that have drafts in August. I know a lot of people that are already looking at who they're going to keep in leagues, what direction they're going to go in, excuse me, and why they're going to go in that direction. So I'm going to put together for you a segment of the show that is my top 10 positional rankings for each position. And right now I have, I think, a great list that I can put together for you right here, right now. It's my top 10 fantasy football running backs. Now, top 10 is a little modern, a little basic. But I'm going to release my top 10, and then I'm going to lay out a list of a full top 30 ranking on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast Facebook page, as well as the Thomas Take Sports Podcast Instagram, my Instagram, at Ryan Thomas Take, and also release that list on Twitter, at Ryan Thomas Take. You can follow me, like my pages, do all that stuff on Instagram, at Ryan Thomas Take, and Twitter, at Ryan Thomas Take, as well as I just said, the Thomas Take Sports Podcast Facebook page. I greatly appreciate the love and support from all the football fans, sports fans out there that have enjoyed this podcast the last 3 years. It's been a hell of a journey. And I have to say that. I have to think back in retrospect to where this started and to where this is now. I cannot thank you guys enough. I really can't. So, as I take my swig of water and drop my cap, I have to give you my top 10 fantasy football running backs. Now, you're getting advice from somebody that really knows what he's talking about. And I think that I can honestly say that and not come across as braggadocious, not come across as cocky, arrogant. But the results, as I always like to say, the results speak for themselves. The fantasy titles are there. The championships have been won. In the past, there'll be one in the present, and they for sure will be one in the future. There's plenty more to come, plenty more titles to come. I have won, to my knowledge, if I'm counting correctly, 8 fantasy football leagues over the course of my playing time. I'm pretty sure that number's right. It's either 7 or 8. I've lost, and that's the point. I've lost count as to how many fantasy football leagues I've won. I've won a lot of them. I won 2 last year. I was in the finals, lost that third one. I was in 3 leagues last year, and I won 2 of them, was in the finals, and the other one that I didn't win. So I could have potentially won 3 leagues, and had I won that league that I lost, I would have won that league 3 straight years in a row. So that just goes to show you the dominance, the consistency is there. And each year, I always like to look at this every single year, and I say to myself, fantasy football is different than any other. It's different every year. Every season is different. You could have one player one year, one player the same player the next year, and he might not put up the numbers that he put up last year. So for all these people that are on these fantasy football forums and stuff like that, they're saying that this quarterback is number 1. This running back is number 1. Yeah, you're ranking quarterbacks based on what they did last year. I'm ranking these players based on what I think they're going to do this year, how good of a season they're going to have this year. And I look at fantasy rankings of, quote-unquote esteemed fantasy football writers, I guess. Matthew Berry has Pat Mahomes as his number 1 quarterback. Okay, that's pretty easy to rank him there based on what he did, as I said, last year. But that was last year, not this year. That was 2018, not 2019. So my top 10 running backs for 2019 are just that. My top 10 running backs, in my opinion, for 2019. And number 10, we'll go 10 to 1. Number 10 is a rookie in the National Football League. Number 10 is a guy that I think is going to get a lot of carries, a lot of touches, whether it's running the ball or catching the ball out of the backfield. That is Oakland Raiders running back Josh Jacobs, selected in the first round of this year's draft with one of the 3 draft choices by the Oakland Raiders. John Gruden loves to run the ball. And they want to take a little bit of the pressure off of Derek Carr. We got a fresh running back, a running back that was in a running back by committee at Bama, but was often looked at as the true running back of Alabama. You had Josh Jacobs and Damian Harris, who was drafted by the New England Patriots. I actually didn't even know that until I looked at all the draft reports of each team recently and saw Damian Harris drafted by the New England Patriots. That's a great late-round pick by the Patriots once again. But I believe Josh Jacobs is going to have a really good year. 5'10", 219. You don't have to worry about him getting hurt. He's been able to stay healthy. And I think of all the rookies in the National Football League, he's a player that will play early and make an impact early. So, number 10, I have Josh Jacobs. I have him 10th in the top 10. No higher than that because he is a rookie, and there's still a lot to prove. Number 9. Number 9, I have the running back that took a year off last year. He sat this one out. Last year he said, I want more money. I'm good. I'm okay. Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell has a lot to prove to me. He belongs in the top 10. He is in the top 10. But Le'Veon Bell has a lot to prove to me. He's a guy that took this last year off. Not only did he take that year off, he changed teams. Went from the Pittsburgh Steelers to the New York Jets. I'm cautiously optimistic as to how well he will do or how well he won't do. It's very tough. If I'm on my draft and I see his name pop up, it's a true chance, a true risk, I think, taking him. Because the New York Jets do not have a great offensive line. The New York Jets do not have Ben Roethlisberger at quarterback. They have Sam Darnold. Now, that's no slight on Sam Darnold. I've said it time and time again. I said it leading up to the 2018 NFL Draft. I said it leading up to last season before his rookie season that I really like Sam Darnold. I really like Sam Darnold. It's tough for me to say that because he's wearing a Jets uniform. As a Buffalo Bills fan, I do not want Sam Darnold to do well. I want him to do horribly. But I think he's pretty good. I think he's only going to get better, and I think Le'Veon Bell is a great security blanket for him, but they did not bring in help on that offensive line, which I think they greatly, greatly need. And you have a player that took a year off. I think that's massive. I don't know what he's been doing this entire year that he was off. I don't think he's been sitting on his couch eating potato chips, but I think the preparation that you have with your team, with your teammates in particular, in comparison to working out in a weight room, trying to stay fit, is 2 completely different things. And I know that from experience. I know that from being in those rooms, being on those practice fields, playing in those, competing in those practices, trying my hardest to get better each and every day, and in the off season, trying to drill and trying to prepare for the season. It's 2 completely different things. And Le'Veon Bell might have been able to somewhat rest his body. That's the only thing I can say. That maybe he actually did rest his body within this year off. But I'd like to think that that if I'm optimistic, I'd like to think that this year off actually helped him in some ways. But I'm a little bit pessimistic as to whether it actually will. So there's that. So right now I got Le'Veon Bell 9th. I got Josh Jacobs at number 10. Number 8, running back of the Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Mixon. I really like Joe Mixon. I think that he could potentially, by the end of the season, be even higher on this list, maybe even a top 5 runner. And that's due to the fact that he's going to be heavily relied upon in this offense as he was last year. He's got a lot of intangibles, a lot of ability. Had he not had that domestic or assault, public assault instance a few years back while he was at Oklahoma, I think he would have been a first-round draft choice. And I think that whoever picked him would be really, really happy. But I know the Cincinnati Bengals are happy with him. I know that they gave him the opportunity to redeem himself, and thus far he has stayed out of trouble, and thus far he has made the most of his second chance. Shout out to Joe Mixon for that. Number 7, sliding down the list from last year, a guy that I had ranked in my top 3, Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley is a guy that I don't know what to think of Todd Gurley right now. I really don't. If he's there in the second round, I might take him. And for me to say that says a lot, because I love Todd Gurley. I think he's a great player. I think he has the potential to be so great, but this knee issue that he has had these last few seasons, and in particular in the biggest game of the year, in the Super Bowl, he was nowhere to be found because of the knee injury. He says that it wasn't an injury. He says that he was okay, that he should have got the opportunity to play in that game, but he didn't. He was out and he was hurt. And I think that he's a huge question mark heading into this season. I don't know what to make of him. I don't know what to make of Todd Gurley. Number 6, I have Melvin Gordon of the Los Angeles Chargers. Melvin Gordon is a guy that I think is far better than he's given credit for. His rookie year was a little bit of a down year, and ever since he's really put up some stellar seasons. Truly intriguing topic now that is associated with Melvin Gordon is obviously the fact that he is demanding the Chargers write him a new deal. If they don't, he's going to ask for a trade. He's going to walk. He's going to go do something else, play for somebody else. And depending on where he gets traded to, I don't think he really changes his standing in the top 10. But I think it could affect his role within the offense. He might be relied on even more, or he might be relied on less. Not necessarily less. He might get more catches in one offense than he would with the Chargers. The game plan would change, I think, for Melvin Gordon if he were to go to a different team, maybe. And not necessarily that I think that, but it's a possibility, should I say. But I really like Melvin Gordon. He's going to be one of my keepers in my league with my buddies from high school and stuff. And I like that. I like the fact that you got Melvin Gordon in there for the Chargers. He's a great running back. And no matter where he goes, whether he starts the season with the Chargers, his ideal scenario is that the Chargers pay him more money, extend his rookie deal. And I think they should. I think he's 100% in the right to ask the Chargers of that because he's that good of a player. David Johnson of the Arizona Cardinals I have ahead of Melvin Gordon. It's mainly due to the fact that he is one of the best pass-catching running backs in football. Had that knee injury last year or a couple years ago and had to kind of bounce back from that. Was in a little bit of a quote-unquote transition year, but I think David Johnson is a phenomenal player, and I have him 5th overall. I think he's going to be really, really heavily used in this Arizona Cardinals offense, especially with rookie quarterback Kyler Murray. I think you could see some potential for some more catches from David Johnson as opposed to previous years, which really says a lot. Number 4, my boy, Alvin Kamara. I rated him as the number 1 player in fantasy last year, and he didn't steer those owners wrong. He had a great season last year, but I'm looking for him to take a little bit of a step, not a step back, but ranked 4th due to the fact that I think the 3 guys ahead of him will have bigger and better years than Alvin Kamara. Really, Alvin Kamara could end up being in this top 3, top 2 by the end of the season, but I believe that he will be right here, number 4. Number 3. Now this is tough. This is where it starts to get tough for me because I think that this player will have a phenomenal year. This player will probably be in the Hall of Fame someday. And this is a guy that I think is rated number 1 on a lot of top running back draft boards for fantasy football. And that was good knuckle crack. That is running back Saquon Barkley, the New York Giants. I like what the Giants have done as far as rebuild that offensive line, but everything else was terrible. Landon Collins gone. Odell Beckham Jr. gone. Daniel Jones in. Defensive tackle in. I really didn't like what the Giants did this offseason. And I think they put a massive target on the back of Saquon Barkley. And for me to say that, and to still have Saquon Barkley ranked 3rd, I think says a lot about how talented this guy is. I see him having a down year, though. I see him having a year similar to that of Todd Gurley a few years back when the box was stacked and he was really the only threat on that offense, which is not good. I don't really see Saquon Barkley being used as a David Johnson type player or another player that I'm going to mention in a little bit, but he potentially could be. Number 2, I have the Carolina Panthers' Christian McCaffrey. I've owned McCaffrey every year since he's been in the league, and he has been a true stud for me. I could have easily ranked this guy number 1, but my number 1 running back, I think, has proven it a little bit more as an all-around back, as a runner, and is in a phenomenal offense. But Christian McCaffrey, I think, will have a phenomenal year. I think this is going to be the biggest year of his career. I think he's bulked up. He's going to really be able to run between the tackles more than he has in previous seasons. He's really been used as mainly a pass-catching running back, but is also, he's had some great running seasons as well. But I think over 1,000 yards potentially rushing and receiving for Christian McCaffrey. But when I look at a true running back ranking, if I'm taking a running back, I want a guy that can, without a doubt, run between the tackles. And that gives you my number 1 running back in the 2019 fantasy season, Ezekiel Elliott. Elliott will not be suspended this year for any conduct detrimental to his team. I do not believe so. Everything I've read lends me to believe that he will not be suspended. It's been reported that he won't be suspended. I'm going off of those facts that if you have Ezekiel Elliott for 16 games on your franchise fantasy team, you're going to get some really, really good production out of that running back position. And you couple in the fact that you have on that Dallas offense, you have Amari Cooper now. You got Jason Witten back, old Jason Witten, but still, Jason Witten is still, I'm going to assume that he's going to make his impact on that offense. And you have the best offensive line in football. I can't ignore that. I can't look past that. That fact alone, I think, puts Ezekiel Elliott at number 1. Plus, you add in the fact that Ezekiel Elliott can run for power, can run for speed, has elusiveness, and can also block and catch passes out of the backfield. If you have 16 games of Ezekiel Elliott, I think his 16 games will be better than anybody. Maybe outside of Christian McCaffrey, maybe outside of Alvin Kamara, but maybe outside of Saquon Barkley. But I think if I'm ranking who I think is the best running back in fantasy as well as the NFL, Ezekiel Elliott, I think, is that guy. So there you have it. My top 10 fantasy football running backs. As I said, I'll be putting out a more comprehensive, in-depth top 30 at each position. But for now, for the podcast, I'll be putting out a top 10. The top 30 will be a list, and it will be a ranking. It will be posted on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast Facebook page. So tune into that. Also, it'll be posted on the Thomas Take Instagram at Ryan Thomas Take, as well as Twitter at Ryan Thomas Take. Big things coming up for the show. Josh Rest of Trainwreck Sports will be on tomorrow. And Sunday, I'll have Kyle Hughes of Trainwreck Sports on as well. Love working with those guys. Love collaborating with those guys. We'll be having some other guests on the show as well this Wednesday and Sunday. Can't wait. So there you have it. I'm Ryan Thomas. Thank you for tuning in.